welcome to Kimberley, who heads up Risky Women.
I am Kimberley Cole. I am based here in Hong Kong and call myself Chief Risky Woman. We started Risky Women back in 2014, and we aim to connect, celebrate and champion women in risk regulation and compliance. So it's a fun network, and we showcase a lot of women in the industry.
Kind of moving on to kind of a few questions for you today. Now, I know we do an awful lot of recruitment across compliance, financial crime, legal and risk. And what we see probably from a D&I perspective is there are a lot less women visible in senior risk roles. Do you have any kind of take on that? Why do you think that really is?
It's interesting because I think when I started Risky Women I used to look after the financial customers at Thomson Reuters, and then I expanded to look after all of the risk and compliance customers as well. And originally there seemed to be a lot more women in the risk and compliance space than there were. Certainly, a lot of the time I was dealing with trading desks and far more male dominated areas. So I started Risky Women off the back of that, really, because I would go and see, senior chief compliance officers and chief risk officers. But if you look at and there's not a lot of accurate data, but if you look at the data, and I think this is, I don't think risk is any different to many of the other areas. Women remain underrepresented in that space. And I actually think in the risk and compliance space, women probably have some quite, good skills in terms of, driving compliance, but driving compliance in actually a way that can be a business enabler.
Initiatives would you encourage organisations, I suppose, to undertake, etc., to hire more females into their workforce? Because there is so much around this in the D&I piece, but and we're, for example, targeted on shortlists for our kind of risk searches, compliance searches, financial crime, legal searches, but actually finding those people, is still, has its challenges.
I think some diversity and inclusion programs are more advanced than others, and I was reading some sort of statistics on some of the D&I programs that still are saying that many firms are still taking it as pretty much as a tick the box activity. So I think you've really got to look at best practice and see what can really be done. And I think there's a whole range of different things, from making sure that you have diverse panels, and obviously with the recruitment industry itself, the best recruiters are putting forward balanced slates. And I often think, yes, it's difficult to find those women. I read another report by Oliver Wyman that was more generally about the problems of women in financial services, and sort of taking this view of making the invisible visible. And so I guess some of that's what we're trying to do at Risky Women. So you still look at the number of women quoted in any opinion pieces, or women writing the opinion pieces, or the sources that are quoted are often not women. So that's why we started the podcast, was to bring female expert opinion on a whole range of different topics to the table. And if you look through the real breadth of talent of people speaking on the podcast, you have got a lot of risk. Reg tech people. We've got, entrepreneurs who have come from big corporate jobs, but are now using, artificial intelligence to solve risk problems in financial crime. We've got governance specialists on there who are then looking at, and I think there's a whole wave of different pressures that's coming to drive diversity. So whether that's, investors saying, I'm not going to invest in firms that don't have balanced leadership, or, look at BlackRock and the Larry Fink letter every year, who really is starting to put that ESG lens very broadly across everything. But yes, and the other thing that we do with Risky Women is we have what we call Women to Watch. And so we started from International Women's Day, and we started, I think, for International Women's Day, we profiled about 10 to 15 women, and I think we've done almost 80 women now. So you can go onto our website and you can look. It's just incredibly inspiring to look at the number of fantastic women out there, and across a broad range of areas of the risk and compliance and governance space. And we're increasingly now looking, because you mentioned things around the quantitative risk side, where at the start we then went through and we looked at our database and went, oh, we don't have many. But we've since been sort of contacting people about them, and we found a few, but it's certainly not an area where there's obviously a lot of women that have gone into, and I think quant generally, whichever area you want to look at it, quantitative investing, quant anything, there's less women in the space, and I think that probably comes back to STEM, but maybe an awareness of that area.
I definitely feel like there's much more support out there.
I was going to raise that as well, because I think if you look at just women in leadership and women moving, progressing in the organisation, really comes down to sponsorship. So mentorship is great, or mentoring is great, but if you look at women who have really broken through and managed to make it to the most senior levels and to the C-suite, it's because the sponsors, the sponsors have really helped them. And I think there's a lot of discussion around this, and how women can get more sponsored, and often that means we need more men involved in the conversation and in the game to try to change this. But sponsors are really critical, and will sort of help create that level playing field, if you like, and help remove some of those blockers that often women face, like making sure they get P&L roles and having the breadth of experience that they need. But I think they also just push some of the women who have the skills but maybe think, I'm actually doing pretty well and I quite like what I'm doing where I am, and they don't try to push forward. So yeah, I would say sponsors and having men involved in sort of solving these challenges is really crucial.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel like there's encouragement that needs to be along the way. And although it's great to hire a diverse workforce, you need to make sure that they're inclusive in the journey, because otherwise attrition rates just fall and you never get those females onto sort of senior management panel.
I mean, I think the business case is very clear, and there's been so many reports on how performance would be better, with a more diverse decision making process, and that means having diversity at all levels of the organization, being really key. From a risk perspective, I also think it's really crucial to make sure that you're managing risks and you don't have any blind spots. Diversity is really going to make sure that you're taking quite a holistic view of what's going in the organization. And obviously, women is one of those areas of diversity that, it should be probably one of the easiest ones for us to tackle. At Risky Women, we're going to continue to try to connect and celebrate all of the women in risk regulation and compliance. And I would, ask everyone to go on and look at the women to watch list, and you'll just see that there's an incredible amount of talent out there. Listen to some of the podcasts, and you can hear their opinions and what they've got to say. And we're open to hear any new ideas on how else we can help celebrate the women in risk regulation and compliance.
I really appreciate all the work you're doing in this field. Brilliant. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.